Hello, my name's Keith Rucker. Today I wanted to take an opportunity and just visit with you guys on a couple of things, share with you some stuff that's been going on the past few days, talk to you about some recent little toys that I've gotten that you'll be probably seeing in some of my videos, and also maybe talk about some comments that have come in on the website in the last few days. First off, it's been Christmas the past week or so. I've been trying to spend some time at home with my family this past week, and we've had a great Christmas season this year. I hope that everybody out there had a great Christmas and just a holiday in general. I've been very fortunate that my job allows me to kind of take some time off in December, which is really nice. We work real hard pretty much all year long, and December is kind of a downtime for us. So I've been off most of the month of December, not all of it, and kind of taking care of what comes up along the way as needed, but really not putting in full days. So I've had some time to spend in the shop, and I've shot some videos in the last few weeks. Unfortunately, we're about to hit the ground running hard again first of the year, and a number of my YouTube videos will probably drop off significantly as I get back to working my real full-time job. But anyway, enough on that. I just want to talk a few things. Number one, you'll probably notice I'm not at the museum. I'm not in the machine shop out there. If you've been watching a lot of my videos, you're probably seeing some new surroundings. I'm actually shooting this from my home shop, which I'm home right now. My wife actually had to have some real minor outpatient surgery done on her shoulder, and the next day or two I'm going to be kind of stuck around the house helping take care of her, which will give me an opportunity to spend some time in my shop here. I've been so focused lately on trying to get the machine restored that I've been working on at the museum now for such a long time that I've kind of neglected doing some stuff here at my home shop. And my home shop, this is just a detached building off my house. My wife and I actually bought a new house about 7 months ago. We've been living in the same house since we got married. Been living there for almost 20 years, and this past May we were finally able, I guess you could say, buy our dream home. So we got a place out in the country with a little bit of land and a nice house, and one of the nice perks was the house that we bought had a detached garage, a 25 by 25 detached garage, which has become my shop, or which is in the process of becoming my shop, I guess you could say. So when we got this, it was just all rough finish. There was nothing fancy in here at all. I've done a lot of work in here over the past 7 months, and really haven't got everything finished up, but I'm getting real close. And this will actually be more of a wood shop. I do some woodworking. The people that have known me and followed me on the old woodworking machinery forums know that in addition to metalworking and restoring machinery, I like to use both woodworking and metalworking machinery. So this shop will be my woodworking shop, and then all my machine shop stuff is out at the Georgia Museum of Agriculture, where I shoot a lot of my machine shop videos. And the milling machines, both the horizontal and vertical mill, those are my machines. The largest Shipley lathe is the museum's machine, and then pretty much all the tools and stuff are all mine. I just have them out there. We've got a good relationship. They give me pretty much unlimited access to the shop, and I carry some of my stuff out there and do some work for them. And it works out good. Eventually, my plans are to build a larger shop addition onto this building here and move my woodworking shop over there, because I can't even get all my woodworking machinery in this space, this 25 by 25 space. So I'm going to probably build will build a bigger shop space over there. I'll probably move my wood shop into the larger space. In this space will become my machine shop, and I may even eventually expand the wall out here and expand the size of this room as well as needed. But enough on that. I want to share with you guys just a few little things that I guess I have acquired in the last week or two over the Christmas break. First off, I had mentioned in a video a while back that I was hoping that I'd been good this year and hoping that Santa Claus was going to bring me another camera to use in shooting these videos, and I guess I was good enough, because I've got this nice little GoPro camera. I don't know if anybody's familiar with these or not. A lot of the machine shop guys shooting video on YouTube are using these because it's a real small, compact camera. These are the little cameras that people will strap onto their helmet and go skydiving or mountain climbing and stuff. They're very durable. They're very small. They're very lightweight. They're made more for action type shooting, but the nice thing about them is they come in this little waterproof housing. It's a very durable camera. It can take some abuse, and you can really get it set in close on some stuff. So I'm hoping to be able to use this to get some close-up shots in the machine shop and use it as a second camera to the one on my main camera that I'm using to get some more shots. So here we go. This is the first thing I want to show you guys. This is a Craigslist find that I picked up here just in the last couple of days. A guy about an hour from me had listed on Craigslist a micrometer set, a 0 through 6 inch micrometer set. I've had in my toolbox for years and years 3 micrometers, Starrett micrometers that will measure up to 3 inches. But there's been many times I've needed some larger micrometers and I just haven't had them. So anyway, I went and picked these up the other day and picked up what I think is a pretty nice set of micrometers. The case here I think was kind of cobbled together, but what's important is the micrometers inside really look nice. Let me get a close-up on these for you. So what you see here is the case, and this is mostly Brown and Sharp's micrometers. But let's start with first off with the 0 to 1 inch. This is a Starrett 221, really nice micrometer. It's actually a big upgrade from the one that I have, which is also a Starrett. This one here is made to read to the 10,000th of an inch, as are all these micrometers in here. My older micrometers that I had, all of those were only made to measure to 1,000th. So anyway, I'm pretty excited about this. So this first one here is a Starrett number 221. The 1 to 2 inch in here is a sheer Tumico. I guess that's how you say that. Sheer Tumico maybe. I've actually got a set of depth micrometers made by these that are pretty old that came in a toolbox that I got. Another nice micrometer here. Again, it's got the veneer scale on here to measure down to a 10,000th of an inch. Or yeah. And the next one's the 3 inch, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, or let's see, no, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and 5 to 6 inch micrometers. These are all Brown and Sharp's. They're all pretty much the same. And again, all going down to the 10,000th of an inch. So anyway, I was pretty excited to pick this up. Got it at what I thought was a pretty fair price. I paid $150 for the whole set. It was a guy who's actually in school right now to be a machinist up in Middle Georgia, and I think he was needing some cash for Christmas, and he had told me he had bought these from one of his instructors, and was just really hated to let him go because he's going to be graduating in about 3 months and was going to be needing to get some tools, but he needed some cash right now, and they had to go. So he was asking $150 for them. I thought that was a fair price, so I didn't even try to haggle him down on them. I just bought them from him, and it came in the wooden case. Like I said, I don't think these micrometers originally were made for this case, so you can tell someone made a little plywood insert. This is a Brown and Sharp case that they're in. So anyway, I was really excited about this little purchase. Next thing I want to show you guys was this Aloris CA wedge type tool post holder. This is something that really been needing out at the museum on the big Lodge and Shipley lathe. I think I've shared in some of my other videos that I've been frustrated with the tooling that I have out there because it's really not tooling that's made for a lathe the size that I'm working with. The tool post that's on there is one of the import clones of an Aloris type tool post holder that's made for a smaller 10-inch lathe that I used to own, and really the cutters and the tooling and all were from a 10-inch lathe that I used to have. And when I started when I moved all my milling machines and stuff out of the shop, I actually sold that 10-inch lathe. I was just needing some space, and I was going to be working out there and had the bigger lathe, and just decided my smaller lathe needed to go. So I sold my little Logan lathe, and I just carried my tool post holder and all my insertable tool holders and all that out there to the museum and just started using them, and it worked. It's worked great. But this is really a more appropriate size. This one is made for, I think, a 14 to 18-inch lathe, which the one we have out there is a 16-inch lathe. So this is a much larger tool post holder. It's also the wedge type. The one I have out there is a plunger type. This is a little more accurate, I think, a little bit more desirable tool post. And this was actually an Aloris here. This was a eBay find. I've been looking for one for some time now at a reasonable price. These things usually sell for quite a bit of money, and I got pretty lucky, I think, on this one. I got it at a very fair price, I thought, and was able to buy it. And anyway, I've got it here now. So anyway, let's get a close-up on that. It's definitely used, but it's in pretty good shape. Everything's free. You can see the wedges moving up and down on it pretty easily. You know, I was a little disappointed. It looks like someone beat the face, or hit the face. I shouldn't say beat it, but there's some dents in here. It would have been hit with a hammer or something. But this front face isn't really what's registering with the tool post holders, or the holders that go on here. They're really more registering in the dovetails back here in the back, and these are all in great shape. I've looked at them real closely, and everything appears to be good. I don't have a holder here. There's actually a few CA holders out at the museum that I have picked up that's here and there and yonder, because I just knew I was going to be getting one of these at some point in time. So I need to get those and make sure everything's going to fit on here. But just looking at it, I think this is going to be a good addition to the lathe out there. Again, it's not in perfect shape, but it's definitely in what I would consider good shape. And I think will be a good user for us. So anyway, now I need to start getting me some tool holders to go on here, and get some tooling that's a little more suitable for that size lathe. And then I think I'll be in a little bit better shape for using that bigger lathe at the museum. So anyway, I was pretty excited about this. Thought I'd share it with you guys as well. So here's some of my Christmas goodies. I thought I'd share those with you, and also I'm going to take a little bit of time and reply to a couple of comments that I've gotten on the website lately. So if you're interested in seeing me doing machining work, or not interested in hearing me talk, you can shut your video off anytime you want to, guys. And I say that kind of jokingly, but it's been kind of interesting. And I'll just share this. You know, when I started shooting these YouTube videos several months ago, it was really in response to some requests I was having, again, over on the Old Woodworking Machines discussion forum, which I was participating in and talking about rebuilding the planer matcher that I'm working on at the museum. And people were asking for more information on how I was doing some of the machine shop work, and was interested. So I started shooting some videos, really just kind of for that audience over there. And, you know, for the first probably 3 or 4 months, you know, I maybe have had 30, 40 subscribers, and, you know, and it was all the OWWM bunch, and, you know, and the world was happy. I was happy. Everything was good. Well, a couple of months ago, I started posting some more stuff online, and I guess through this YouTube search engine, other people started finding my channel, and my subscription rate has just really started growing like crazy as I've added more content to the site. And I really, to be honest with you guys, I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I really just kind of, you know, had originally thought this would just be the OWWM crowd, and you know, but it's taken off for whatever reason. It blows me away that I was online looking a while ago, and I'm right on the threshold of having 2,000 subscribers right now to this channel. And I never in a million years would have thought there'd been that many people out there interested enough to subscribe and see what I'm doing in the shop. So for you guys who are watching these videos and subscribing to my channel, thank you. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. I'm really having a lot of fun doing this. I hope you're enjoying it. I was kind of joking around a while ago about if you don't like what you're seeing, turn the camera off, and because with the subscriptions, I'm getting an awful lot of comments, and it's kind of always fun. When I come home in the evening and turn the computer on, you never know what's going to show up in the comments, because you got plenty of people who are like, hey guy, you're doing a great job. We appreciate you doing this, which is great feedback. I love it. And then you got the guys who are always critical of every little thing. They don't like the way you shoot your video. They don't like the way you produce your videos. And don't get me wrong. If you have constructive criticism, I'm a big boy. I can take it. And in fact, I welcome constructive criticism. However, there are some guys out there that are just downright rude. I don't know no better way to put it. I just shake my head when I see some of those. So, but anyway, if you don't like to hear me talk, it has an on-off switch, guys. Feel free to use it. But I hope you are. I'm gonna read some of these comments. The only reason I'm doing this is we did it before when I wasn't able to comment online, and I had a lot of guys say, "Hey, do that. Keep on doing that. We like that." So anyway, we'll get into the comments. First one I'm going to mention here, and I'll say this too when I'm going through these. Some of these particularly questions that I get, I'm getting multiple questions, and I'm not going to read every one of them. I just kind of picked one of them, some of these questions out. So if you posted a question, I may be reading someone else's question, but hopefully we get around to getting to the answer. But this first one here is just a comment. I've gotten this a lot in the last couple of weeks, and it says, this is from Tom7601 in Vista, California. It says, occasionally your videos get posted with very low audio levels and only left channel. On my iPad, I need to use headphones. It's no problem. My desktop's and say, use speakers. I love your videos, and when you're working with old equipment, keep them coming. Well, guys, I had a bunch of problems early on using the microphone that was built into the camera with the background noise, particularly with the lathes and mills running in the shop with all the background noise. People say they couldn't hear me. So I got a little wireless mic, and I wear this, and that puts it a little bit closer to where I'm talking from, and I think that has helped the audio problems. But one thing I didn't really realize when I first started using this was I was only getting sound recorded on one of the two stereo channels, and it was coming on the left-hand side. And I really scratched my head on this for a while trying to figure out what was going on. I thought it may be a limitation in my camera. Then I started looking like, no, my camera supports stereo. I went back and looked at some of my earlier videos. It was recording in stereo. But when I went to the wireless mic, I was having problems with getting stereo. And I looked on the specs for my wireless mic, and it's supposed to be in stereo too. Anyway, after doing some troubleshooting and playing around, I finally figured out that the problem was there's a cable that goes from the receiver for the wireless mic to the camera, and that the cable that was shipped with it was defective, and it was losing the left-hand channel in that cable. So anyway, I spent a couple of bucks, bought a new cable, put it on there, and actually I borrowed one from a guy and tried it out and figured out that was a problem, and then went out and got a new one. So now hopefully from here on out we'll be back in stereo. And for you guys on the iPads, they're saying you can't hear me. Hopefully we'll have that resolved. So thank you for everybody for pointing that out, because quite honestly, if you hadn't, I probably wouldn't notice, because I pretty much do all my editing on my desktop computer that has speakers, and it sounds great on the speakers, and you really can't tell it's only coming in one channel. So anyway, that should hopefully be fixed down the road. So now let's get to some of these other questions that have come in, and I'm just going to go through these by video, and I don't have every single comment. I've tried to just get the ones here that have questions or comments that I wanted to follow up on. So first one here, this is on the video: expansion gear repair, brazing cast iron, and boring a hole in the vertical mill. I think this was probably the last video that I posted. This first question was from Michael Reggie, I think is how you pronounce that. It says, hi Keith, great repair as usual. Just wondering, did you bore it back to the original dimension, or did you bore it oversized to be bushed later? Or would it not be necessary to have it fit this closely? I see it has two bores. Perhaps there is a need for a loose fit. Okay, yes, I did bore it just slightly oversized, and I also knew that it was worn a little bit oversized. I mainly just wanted to get that cleaned up, and I'll have to shoot some video showing you how this expansion gear fits on the machine, but it basically just slides over a shaft, and then actually that shaft goes down to a smaller diameter. It just kind of rides back there. It's not even a tight fit, so it's not really super critical that we have a bore with tight tolerances. But my thought was that I would put a bronze bushing in there, and that's one of the reasons why I did bore it a little bit oversized. So we're going to be taking a look at that. Right now. I actually was out of some bronze. I've been doing a good bit of bronze work. I had to order some bronze, and when I was working on that, I didn't have any bronze material in the shop to make that out of. Some came in the other day, so hopefully we'll get that fixed up and put back in there. But yes, my intention is to probably go ahead and sleeve it and get it back down as close to that diameter. But in reality, it's not a part that's really riding on a shaft that really needs to be a tight fit. But I want to take as much as the slop out as I can, because like I said, it slides over a shaft and then it goes down to a smaller diameter. It just kind of flops in there. It's not really, it's just kind of to get it positioned to keep those gears aligned. And I'll shoot a video later really showing how those expansion gears work, and hopefully you can get a better idea. All right, this one from same video was from Cozy1. It says, "Hello Keith, thanks for the great videos. Don't know about your tap follower, but on mine I'm able to unscrew it and turn over the spindle around where there is a center hole for little taps." And this is coming from my little tap follower, little spring-loaded tap follower. I made a comment that the little small tap I was using didn't have a center hole. It was kind of pointed on the top, and he's saying that on his he can turn it over, and instead of having a center, it has a hole that sits on top of that. And that's something I'm going to have to look at. I don't think mine will do that, but that's if not, I'm going to have to find a tap follower that does, because I do some smaller holes, and I've ran into that problem before. So next time I'm out at the shop, I'm going to take a look at my tap follower and see if I can turn it over. And if you don't mind, if anybody knows of a brand that you can do that, where you can flip that over and have the center hole rather than a center point, have both of those, let me know what it is, because I'd be interested in finding one of those. I think that'd be a handy feature. And again, I don't think mine does that, but I need to go back and look at it. This one is from Fred Miller. Nicely done. I like the masking of the bore technique. Thank you. And I just want to throw that one in. I showed the little trick where I took a piece of paper and coiled it up and put down in the holes before I painted it. And you know, that's a little trick. I saw that. I was actually with a group of people that we were working on a group project restoring some old machinery several years ago for the old woodworking machines group, the OWWM group. It was at Arnfest several years ago, and I don't remember who it was, but one of the guys there, we were restoring, I don't even remember what it was now. We do this every year. We'll kind of all get in together, pitch in, and over a weekend restore a piece of machinery. And usually we turn around and give that to the Illinois Railway Museum, which is where we host that event at. And while we were doing that, I saw one of the guys do this, and it's, man, that's brilliant. So anyway, I really like that idea, and was glad to be able to pass that little trick along. All right, next one here is on a video, turning feed rollers on a metal lathe. This is another recent video that I put up. This one's from ABOM79. This is from Adam down in Pensacola. By the way, Adam, I watch your channel all the time. You do some great work, and nice. If y'all don't watch ABOM79's channel, I would encourage you to do so. Adam's a fairly young machinist, but a very accomplished machinist. Been working in his family machine shop for years, and does some pretty good work, and does some nice videos. So anyway, Adam commented, "Nice work, Keith. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we call our highs and lows the opposite." And he's talking about when I was on the 4-jaw chuck, when I was had the indicator on there, and I was adjusting it. And I'm not exactly sure what Adam calls a high or but I'll tell you what I call a high. And it may be opposite of what he calls it, but again, when I'm doing a four-jaw chuck, I think of that indicator is running horizontal, and so whenever I roll that part around, I'm looking at where it's touching the indicator, and when the indicator is at the highest point, that's what I'm calling a high. So I'm not sure if why Adam's thinking that's the opposite, but I suspect that he may be thinking of the high being on the high side, on the vertical. But it's probably just the way I think about it when I'm doing it. And you know, that's one of the things about this machine shop stuff, guys, is that if you talk to 10 different machinists on how to do something, you'll probably get 10 different answers, and they're all right. There's not really a right or wrong way to do a lot of this stuff. And so anyway, just a little bit of difference in, I guess, the way we look at things, but the end result is pretty much the same. This one is from B3 NSB3NZ. So will the machine be used when the restoration is done, or does this go into the museum and sit? Good question. The machine that I'm working on restoring right now is a J.A. Vance planer matcher that was made probably around 1900 to 1920, somewhere in that ballpark. We don't have a really good way to give a definite answer, but based on some research that we've done, and looking at old catalogs and stuff, actually we were able to get the Smithsonian Institute to help us. They had some original catalogs on this machine and were able to send us some scans of it. But based on the catalogs, this machine was made during that time frame, so we don't know exactly what year it was made, but early 1900s is when this machine was made. And your question was, is it going to be used or is it going to sit? And yes, the intention is that we will put this machine back into use. The Georgia Museum of Agriculture in Tifton, Georgia, is a museum for agriculture, but one of the things they have is about a 100-acre historic village and farm, and it has, of course, the farm part, but we also have the town part, and we have what we call our industrial area, which is where I spend a lot of my time working and volunteering. So we have an old steam-powered sawmill. We have a steam-powered line shaft-driven woodworking shop. We've got a turpentine still, which is something related to the industry down here, where they used to go in and tap the pine trees and get the gum out of the trees and make rosin and turpentine. So there's a lot of stuff in this area, but related, you know, really in South Georgia, where I live at and where I'm from, the agriculture that started here many years ago really was carved out of the forest. This whole area used to be the whole coastal plain that runs from North Carolina, Virginia, all the way down through Texas, and that southern tier. It all used to be a big longleaf pine forest. So before this area was settled and they started farming down here, of course, timber and forest resources were very important. So when you look at the history of this area, producing the southern yellow pine, the heart pine that many people are familiar with, there were millions of board feet of that stuff cut down here and shipped all over the country, all over the world, that was used to make, build all kinds of buildings. And now this old growth southern yellow pine, longleaf pine, is highly sought after, reclaimed. They make flooring out of. It's beautiful wood. The old growth stuff you just can't really get anymore. But anyway, I digress a little bit on that. But the machine will be kind of put into that industrial area down there, where we're showing the how we would have converted the lumber, the trees into lumber, and then the lumber's into finished products. So yes, the intention is we will put it back into use. It won't be used probably on a daily basis like it was at one time, but the goal is that we will be able to fire this thing up and use it, and we'll probably use it in doing a lot of restoration work on the historic village, because a lot of the buildings there are in constant need of repair, and you really can't go out and get modern materials that were milled like they were 100 years ago. And again, in a museum situation, we try to pay very close attention to detail, and that's getting harder and harder because you just really can't get a lot of the old stuff anymore. So we'll probably take some of the wood that we saw off of our steam-powered sawmill and convert that into tongue and groove flooring and such on this planer matcher that we'll be restoring. All right, another comment on that same video on the turning feed rollers and metal lathe. This is from Oliver Boatwright. He says, "Funny, or excuse me, found it funny while you were doing the second journal cut that you said it was a left-hand tool. Then you printed on the screen that it was a right-hand tool, when in fact it actually was a left-hand tool. The difference is like looking at a pair of hands cupped together. The cutting edge is at the fingertips, thus it seems backwards, but that's what it is. You know, when I said that, I questioned myself, and then I got home and said, no, the tool's pointing to the right, not the left. But anyway, I was actually right. I thought I was wrong and tried to correct myself, and actually made a mess out of it. So even though the tool is pointing to the left, it's a right-hand tool, which is the most common type of cutter that you're going to be using, cutting toward the chuck. So even though it's cutting to the left, it's considered a right-hand tool, which seems backwards. But that's the way it is. And you're right. I was wrong. I was right, and then I was wrong when I corrected myself. So thanks for pointing that out. Okay, another video here. Indicating an inside hole and boring on a metal lathe. This comment is from eGlide. It says, Keith, if the bore is out of round by 0.02, I think that's not sort of 20 thousandths, or maybe it was 20 thousandths. I can't remember. And you know it is out by 20 thousandths. Where on one side original location could be kept very close to the original by indicating the 3 unworn sides at 0 and the worn side at 20 thousandths. And you're right. And what this is coming from, I was indicating on the inside of the bore on the lathe and trying to get it set up. He's saying that if you knew it's wore on one side, which this particular journal, it was on the feed rollers, and all the weight was pushing down on the bottom of that. So when the boards are going through these 2 rollers, this basically was pushing the rollers up and down. This was the bottom one. So all the wear was pretty much in the bottom. So instead of being worn round, it was worn more egg-shaped. And I was able to go in there with my snap gauges or my telescoping gauges and a micrometer and measure, and I knew I was about 20 thousandths out, and it was 20 thousandths now that I think about it. And he's saying that I could just indicate 0 on the 3 sides and then 20 thousandths on the other side, where I was kind of just averaging out. And you're right. And I'll say that a lot of times when I've run into this, you know, I'll go in there ahead of time and I'll mic everything out, and I'll actually take a Sharpie pen and write on there the dimensions in different places, so that when I'm indicating, I can kind of compensate for the difference in those diameters, and I'll map it out basically and go in there and do that. And you know, I just didn't go to the trouble on this because again, I knew that with this particular part there was a lot of wiggle room. And yeah, I could have spent another 10 or 15 minutes and got it set up just exactly right. But at the end of the day, it just didn't matter. So, you know, that's another thing. Because I'm doing repair work a lot of times, and because I'm very familiar with the end use of what's going on, sometimes I have the luxury, I guess, of kind of determining, you know, do I need to spend a lot of time getting this just right, or can I take a shortcut or long and just get it where it needs to be. And in this case, that was what I did. I just didn't go to the extra effort there to do that. If it was something that I didn't know what the end use was, or it was something that would need to be a little more precision, I would have, and I have in the past, gone to the trouble of mapping out that and doing that. Okay, same video from Dave Kirtley. Without a surface pickup on, are you really going to get much better than you had just sitting with a setting with the tailstock center where you started? And this is when I was, again, on those same bearing journals, when I was getting started, I took a bullnose center and I just kind of rammed it up against the chuck without any of the chucks tight. And I used that center to try to kind of just roughly get it located on there, and then just tighten my chuck on there. And then I started indicating it. And you know, again, probably that would have been good enough, just to have run it up on there, because in this case, the precision, it didn't really have to be super precision. I just needed a good clean bore in there that I could press something into, because I knew that block, I could adjust it after it was on the machine, having already done 2 of them, and been able to do that. But I will say that, you know, by indicating it, I know that I was able to get it a lot closer than it was. And, you know, because I know that when I know that when I measured it, I had about 130 thousandths of play when I first put the indicator in there of out of roundness, and by making a few adjustments, I was able to go from 130 thousandths down to about 60 thousandths. What I did was I took it took 60 thousandths total to clean that bore up, where I was measuring 120 thousandths out of round when I first started. So at the end of the day, yeah, I think that probably would have worked in this particular application, but I do also know that by taking a few minutes to use the inside hole attachment on my indicator, I was able to reduce the amount of material that I cut out of that by about half to get it cleaned up where I was going. Another one on the same video. This one's from Matthew Tinker. It says, thank you for another good video. I don't understand why you are setting up from the inside. I would have thought that the original raw casting setup was done from the outside, as the boring in relation to its mounting was the principal criterion, the actual bore being as inaccurate as the original left by a core. Regards, Matthew. Okay, and what Matthew is talking about, I think here is, when you get a rough casting in from the foundry, it would have had a rough bore through there, which they had a core in there, and the core is just a sand column that's inside that casting, so that when you get it, it's not solid. There's a hole in there, and usually that's going to be, it's not going to be very accurate at all. In this case, yes, I was working with a rough casting on the outside, but it had been bored previously, and of course that bore had worn. So really, if I was working from a true rough casting that had never been machined, yes, I would have set it up from the outside, found the center best I could, poked a hole in there, and gone. But because I had an existing hole, that existing hole had been bored previously, and we were trying to bush that and not trying to take any more material out of the cast iron than necessary to get a new bushing in there to get it back down the right size. Really, the inside in this case, I think, was the best way to go about doing that. And I think that I think I mentioned something about being a raw casting, but what I was talking about on the outside, it's a raw casting, but it had previously been bore on the inside, making that the best surface I had to go off of and trying to match. But if it had been a raw casting and I was just trying to cut that core out, yes, I would have tried to set it up off the outside. Okay, this one here goes, changing videos again, making an indicator attachment stud for a Noga holder. And this one here is from Outside Screwball, and Chuck out in California. I've actually seen him mentioned a lot in on Tom Lipton's video, Ox Tool Company. Actually he was had made a guest appearance on there recently. So Outside Screwball Chuck, it says, thanks for showing the shortcut of using the die. Hadn't seen that before, nor thought of that, but simple/smart quick. Okay, and what he's talking about is when I was cutting threads on the lathe, and this is a trick that, the guy that I learned from many years ago, he showed this to me, and it's a trick that I have used many times over the years. But when you're cutting threads on a lathe, when you get down close to being done, you can really spend a lot of time trying to get that thread just exactly right. And a little shortcut that you can use is just take a die out of a tap and die set and finish cutting that last little bit using a die rather than trying to finish chasing it out on the lathe. And most dies, you can adjust dies, particularly if you're making a bunch of them and you want to get all of them exactly the same, and you can adjust that die and get it just right, and it's very repeatable, it's very quick. Or even if you're only making one, you can just finish that cut with the die. So you use the lathe to get most of the material gone. And particularly on larger diameter, from say a 1/2 inch and above, trying to cut the whole thread, or even 3/8 and above, trying to cut the whole thread with a die, it can take a lot of energy to cut that. And if you don't get it started just right, it's going down crooked. But when you have 75–80% of the thread already cut on the lathe, it's really very light work to use a die to clean that up. And I don't know that I've seen a lot of other people do that now that I think about it, but that's just a little trick that I learned and I have used over the years and used with great satisfaction. Another thing I like about using a die is a lot of times when you're cutting on the lathe, the cut will have a little bit of chatter in there. It won't be a real smooth cut, but when you finish it out with that die, it just cleans it up and makes it a lot cleaner. Phone's ringing. Sorry about that. That was actually my wife calling me from in the house. Had a quick question for me using our intercom system. Just call me on the cell phone out in the shop. All right, back to here. So we're still on making an indicator attachment stud for Noga holder. This is from 2007 Mark B. Keith, love the idea for your bridge. Sometimes you have to improvise, adapt, and overcome. If you saw the 22-inch 3-jaw chuck on my turret lathe, you'd probably die. A little ingenuity goes a long way. Keep up the good work. Yeah, I've actually dealt with some pretty big chucks like that before, and that's where you really just about have to have a crane or some type of high lift to help you with. You know, back years ago when I worked in the machine shop, we had a Warner & Swasey 2A turret lathe. I mean, this machine weighs, I don't know, something like 17,000 pounds. It's a massive turret lathe. And, you know, I actually, when we got that machine while I was working there, we got a job and needed it for a pretty big job that came in. And my boss found this thing in a used machinery dealer and got a really good deal on it. It's just such a big machine. Nobody really had a lot of use for it. And, you know, talk about moving heavy things. The riggers came and unloaded that machine right inside the loading dock in the shop that I was working in, and my boss came up and said, all right, Keith, I need that machine over there. And literally all by myself over the course of a day, I moved this huge, massive Warner & Swasey turret lathe with nothing but a couple of pry bars, some blocks of wood, and some metal that I just put up underneath the machine to roll it on. So, you know, if you get creative, you can literally, you know, they say if you have a lever long enough, you can move the world. And, you know, we had a pretty long lever, but we were able to move that machine. So, yeah, just, you know, you can do a lot of heavy lifting work with a little bit of effort if you just know a few tricks. And, you know, with that chuck, the bridge thing just seemed like the quick, easy way to get around it. So if you didn't see my video on my lathe, you know, we got a pretty good sized chuck and it's a little bit bigger than I can handle by myself, and don't have a crane to move it, so I just lay a board down between the lathe and a bench that's across from it that's roughly the same height as the lathe, and I'm able to just roll the chuck across this bridge and get it up on there using a lever to get it up on the machine, and I can handle that chuck and move it by myself without having a crane. By improvising and using my bridge. I don't think I printed it out, but I had another comment, and actually I was looking for this and I couldn't find it, but I know it was on one of my, it was a comment somewhere in there where someone said, why don't I put some little wood cleats on there to keep that from rolling off? And I may do that on the lathe side, where it won't roll past the ways. On the bench side, there's really nothing for a cleat to catch on, but I thought that was a good idea, and I'm probably just going to take a little cleat and put it on the bottom side so it won't slide back off the ways. I've never really had a problem with that, but I think it's a good idea, so I'm going to probably take you up on that one, and I don't remember who sent that one. I apologize. Another one from ABomb79 from Adam down in Pensacola. Hey Keith, cool video, very nicely done. I'm glad my little trick helped you out. I'm also glad to see you using the awesome inside indicating attachment. I have the same and use it often. Even did a review on it too. Thanks for the plug. That was very cool. So yeah, the little indicator attachment stud, I got my idea from a video that Adam did. So thank you, Adam, again. I really have enjoyed using that little stud. It's helped me out a bunch. And another one off that video, this was from Dave Lock 1. He said, all I used was a piece of 3/8 inch stock with a 1/4-20 tapped hole and a 1/4-20 cap screw to do the same thing. So I took a piece of 3/8 stock, I then turned it down the lathe to a 1/4 inch and threaded it to a 1/4-20 so I could put a screw on there. And he's just saying he just drilled and tapped it and used a cap screw. You know, another good idea. That would work just as well. So I thought that was another great idea for a little shortcut. So if you haven't made your indicator attachment stud yet and want to take a shortcut, just get a piece of 3/8 inch stock and drill and tap a 1/4 20 hole in the end. Use a cap screw, and if you don't want to turn it down and thread it the way I did mine. From George 330 FUL, George 330 full, I guess is how he says that. Keith, a friend of mine has a Lodge and Shipley lathe. We mounted a small pole crane on the flat part of the lathe just behind the chuck for changing the chucks. It worked perfect. Yeah, that's another great idea, and that's something I've actually looked at, and I saw that same setup on the same model Lodge and Shipley lathe that we have at the museum, on one that was for sale online. I think it was on eBay a while back, where they had taken a pole and just mounted it to the backside of the lathe and had a jib crane, basically a small jib crane for handling chucks. And you know, I may look into doing that. You know, when I saw that before, I said, hey, that's a good idea. The problem I've ran into on our lathe is that area where he's talking about that they attached the pole. That's the same area that all the electrical boxes are on our lathe. So if we were to do that, we'd have to probably do some rewiring and move the electrical boxes around to make that work. But in the shop that I'm out of the museum where we're working, there's really not a good way to do a crane. So that's a good idea, and I need to probably look at that a little bit more seriously. Another one from Paul Reed over in the UK. Paul has watches my channel a lot and has made a lot of comments, and a lot of good comments recently. And this is one he put on there talking about my chuck with the cam locks on it. He said, "Hi Keith, I think you need to adjust the studs for your cam lock. They should tighten up between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. Check this post out," and he gives me a link to Practical Machinist. Seasonal greetings from the UK. So yeah, Paul, I went and looked at that link you sent me on Practical Machinist, where someone had actually scanned something on the cam locks and talks about when you tighten those up. And I tell you, I'm going to probably try to get some video out of the museum before I edit this, if I get a chance, and actually show you a little bit. But when you tighten those, the little line on there should be between 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock. And on some of mine, you could tell they were going on past. They were between 6 and 9. And I did, after looking at that, I hadn't ever really played around with those cam locks too much, but they're fairly easy to adjust and tighten up or loosen up so that you can get it adjusted just right. And I went back, and on my 4-jaw chuck, I adjusted 4 different ones, and man, it works perfectly now. It's actually better than it was before. In fact, one of them, depending on which cam it ended up in, I noticed sometimes when you tighten it, it was actually get tight, and then it would slip past and go all the way back around. So it really wasn't even getting super tight, particularly on maybe one or two of the cams. It just kind of depended on which one it was on. Usually it would be fine, but occasionally I noticed it was slipping on there. Now it's working perfectly after making some adjustments. In fact, I may just shoot a little quick short video on adjusting those cam locks, because I think that's a excellent post that you gave me there, and I learned something from that. So I may turn around and just do a quick little video and soon and show you guys that, so it'll be out there. All right, next one, machine shop maintenance, truing up a 3-jaw chuck. This one is from Axel Polly. Hello Keith, 3-jaw chuck. How much run out is acceptable? My 3-jaw chuck there is about 2,000 inches. Is that bad? I had this one almost 3 years. I use it, and I used of it only. I think he had a typo there, but he uses it a lot. I think is what he's saying. And he's saying on his 3-jaw chuck he's got about 2,000 to play out. Is that bad? No, that's actually real good. You know, looking at what I've been able to come with, I know Mr. Pete did a video talking about 3-jaw chucks, and he says, you know, 5/1000ths of an inch is acceptable on a 3-jaw chuck. Just some other sources that I've looked at, I think probably in that 3 to 5/1000ths range is what you can expect on run out on a 3-jaw chuck, even on the best 3-jaw, but maybe not the best. Some of them are a lot better than others, but on average, maybe 3 to 5/1000ths run out is considered to be acceptable on a 3-jaw chuck. So if yours is running out at 2000s, I think you're ahead of the ball game, ahead of the curve. I just would keep it. I wouldn't worry with trying to grind it. You're probably not going to improve on that much better. So you're never going to get a 3-jaw chuck running perfectly every single time. Some 3-jaw chucks will get you really close, but really, if you've got something that's got to be just perfectly, set up perfectly, you probably need to put a 4-jaw chuck on and indicate it in if it needs to be running just absolutely perfect. And most of the time with what you're chucking up, 3, 4, 5 thousandths is probably not enough to make a big difference. But there are definitely a lot of jobs where that is unacceptable, and you need to go to a 4-jaw chuck in those situations. Or you could use a collet if you got a collet set up. A collet is probably the best way to chuck something up in a lathe, particularly if it's a nominal size that fits a collet real good. Unfortunately, I don't have a collet chuck on my lathe. Going back to my machine shop days, we used collets on the turret lathes all the time, and they were great. And I would love to have a 5C or maybe a bigger collet to go on the lathe I have out in the museum. But again, with me having to finance it, I don't know that we'll be going down that road anytime soon. All right, another one on the 3-jaw chuck video. Hi Keith, did you check the run out on the other ends of the jaws of the intermediate steps for when the jaws are reversed, or use them for internal clamping too? Okay, and what he's talking about is, I ground the jaws for when you're like just clamping it on the inside piece, but you also have on where you can flip them over and have the steps in there. And no, I haven't checked that, and I haven't ground those. And mainly because I just haven't had them flipped over to do that. Probably next time I do flip them over, I'm going to check them. And if need be, I can grind those as well. I'll just need to go through the steps of doing that using the same setup I was using. I think I can accomplish the same thing. Actually, on that, it's pretty easy because on the steps, when you flip them over, you can just clamp on something on the very inside and use that to put the pressure on there. So that's actually a little bit easier to grind. You don't have to build a special ring to do that. And also on the 3-jaw chuck video, it says, what's the procedure if your chuck doesn't have 2-piece jaws? Good question, because on mine, I was actually using the studs where the 2-piece jaws come out to clamp that ring. And if you have 1-piece jaws, like a lot of particularly smaller chucks, the jaws just, they have the threads cut in the back and they just screw right into the scroll chuck. And you really don't have a way to have anything sticking out of them. So in that case, I think that's where a lot of times people will clamp something on the outside. They'll take a ring or a piece of tubing or pipe and they'll expand it out and use that to pull the slack out. And again, I don't think that's quite as good of a way as doing it, but I think that's the way that a lot of people do it because they have this problem. There's really not a better way of doing it. On my setup, again, seeing how Keith Fenner did his little video, I was able to do it this other way. But if you don't have 2-piece jaws, you're just going to have to take the slack out by expanding them out. And again, it's not going to be perfect, but if you got excessive run out in your chuck, it's probably going to improve it and make it better than what it was before. All right, changing videos again. This is on gear repair, making and installing bronze bushings and machining a new shaft. It says, first, I love your videos, so thank you. I have a question about this project. Since you're going to considerable lengths to get the gear and shaft back up to spec, why did you decide not to rebore true up the existing bore before making the bushing? So I think what he's talking about here is on the big gear that we had, there was a bore on the center that went on the shaft, and this was just this shaft is the gear is an idler gear that just rotates on the shaft, and that had a bronze bushing in it. That bronze bushing was worn excessively. I pressed that bushing out, made a new bushing, and put it back in there. And he's asking, why did I not bore out that hole to get it trued up? And the reason is because there was a bronze bushing already in there. And that may not have been real clear in the video. I thought I had mentioned that. But I pressed the old bronze bushing out, and when I did, I had the original bore in there, and the original bore was pretty much untouched. The bronze bushing that was in there had all the wear in it, had not eaten over into the cast iron. So I really didn't see a need to rebore that. It was already perfectly round. It was a good bore. Everything was clean in there. I mic'd it. There was, like I said, it wasn't out of round. So I just felt like there wasn't a need to go that extra step. And I guess too, on a big piece like that, there's really not a good way to indicate that, to get it running perfectly true, except to indicate off that inside bore, because it's all machined, or not machined, it's a rough casting for the most part on the outside. So again, I just didn't see the need to do that. If that bore if it had been worn or it wasn't perfectly true, then yeah, I would have probably chucked it up and we'd have got it running as true as possible and bored it out. But because we pressed out a bronze bushing in there previously, we just went with that original bore there. This one off the repairing a broken gear, part 2, milling a new gear tooth. Hello. Excuse me, this is from Radoslaw Jots. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. RADOSLAWJOCZ. It says, hello, gears are usually shaped on gear shapers and hobbers, so end of tooth should be rounded, but for such a job, your job is fine anyway. And what he's talking about again is on this big gear, he's saying, that there's usually the teeth are kind of rounded up. And you're right. You're absolutely right. And you're right. Gears are usually made on shapers or hobbers, or milled on a milling machine using a special tooth that has that profile already in it. However, on this big gear that I'm dealing with, because it is such a large diameter gear and it's such a coarse gear, the teeth were actually never machined. They were just cast. And you see this a lot on big gears like that, particularly on something like this machine where it wasn't a super precision, that it had to be machined out just exactly right. So while you're right that gears are usually hobbed, in this case it was just a rough casting. That they cast the gear into it, and there was no machining done on the gears at all, the gear teeth at all. And while you are correct, usually they are an oval shaped. Again, because of the size of these, and I looked at them pretty hard when I was doing this, and the original teeth don't appear to have any bevel to them at all. In fact, it's just a straight bevel on them, and I basically copied the profile that was on the gear. And some of that profile may be from where it has worn in over the years, and instead it may have just worn off some of that roundness to it, and you have more of a straight shot. But at the end of the day, on this particular gear, it's not going to matter if those teeth are rounded over or not. Again, it's just such a coarse tooth gear. It's just not really going to matter. So I'm not going to spend any more time on that, I guess. But these are cast gears that I'm dealing with. Another one here from Frog King 9. Wouldn't you rather stick weld iron on iron, not silver solder? Usually I only silver solder on steel in a different metal. Okay, so he's talking about where I silver soldered the repaired tooth, the cast iron tooth, into the cast iron base. And he said he would rather stick weld iron on iron. Well, I guess I have to disagree with you there. Stick welding on cast iron is usually not the best way to go about repairing something on cast iron. At least that's my opinion. Others may disagree with me. Usually you'll have to use a nickel rod. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And as far as silver soldering, yes, it is commonly used to silver solder two different metals together. And two, let me say, we call it silver soldering. It's actually brazing. You're just using silver instead of bronze as what we usually consider brazing, but it's not true soldering. It's a type of brazing. And I think silver solder in this particular application was a very good option. I could have used bronze braze to get in there and do that, but the silver solder tends to melt at a lower temperature, and it will flow down in any cracks and crevices easier than a lot of other things. And again, I've said this before on my gear repair. I've had a lot of people say, hey, that's a neat approach, but I don't like the way you did it, or I don't think it's going to hold up, or I think it's going to bust out, or I would have done it differently. And, you know, I can't argue with a lot of you because, you know, it could have been done a lot of different ways. That's the way I chose to do it. And, you know, is this repair going to hold up and to the test of time? Well, we're going to have to wait and find out. I think it will. Quite honestly, part of my inspiration for this repair came from another tooth that was repaired on this same machine, very similar to how I did that. And that was done, I don't know when, years ago. And the old, that repair has held up just fine. So that's kind of what inspired me, I guess, to go about doing this repair the way I did. So we'll see. But I do disagree with you. I think silver soldering was a better option than stick welding in this particular situation. And again, others may disagree with me on that, and that's fine if you do. And another one from Fred Miller. I think I had one from him a while ago. It says, I'm a new subscriber and I enjoy your skills and comfort style of talk. Some people say I talk too much. I also very much like the train whistles I hear from time to time, very nostalgic. And I just threw that one in there because I want to just mention something. You know, yeah, at the museum we have a little steam locomotive. It's a narrow gauge Vulcan Ironworks steam locomotive made in 1917. It's a little industrial locomotive, they called them. It wasn't ever used on the main lines. It was used basically like we would use a tractor trailer or a truck or a dump truck or something now. This particular little engine was originally purchased back in 1917 for constructing a power dam up in North Carolina. They were used when the steam shovels would dig out the lake. They'd load the dirt up on railroad cars. They had temporary tracks they put down at the bottom of the lake, and it would carry it up to the dam where they were building the dam, and it would dump the dirt out where they were building the dam. And, you know, you have to think back in 1917, they just didn't have a lot of the equipment and stuff we do now. And for what we would use a truck for now, or a tractor or a bulldozer or something, back in 1917, a lot of times they used these little small industrial locomotives. And, you know, ours we kind of used, again, going back, talking about the history in our area, they would use these little small locomotives in South Georgia, and during the time frame of our museum, which is about 1890 to 1910, is what we're representing. Even though this engine is from 1917, it still represents. But it would have been used. They would lay down tracks, go out into the forest. They would cut timber in the forest. They would load those logs on the train and pull it back to the sawmill and saw everything up. Sorry about that. They would saw everything up, and then that was how they got the logs from the forest to the sawmill. And when they would log out an area, they would literally go in there, rip the tracks up, and relay them in another section. So these were all pretty much just temporary little small railroads. And anyway, I'm a big fan of our locomotive. I'm very fortunate that I'm one of the trained engineers that gets to drive the locomotive on a regular basis. In fact, usually on Saturdays when I'm out at the museum working in the shop, I'll go out for about an hour or two and spell the other guy that helps out with the locomotive engineering duties, give him a chance to go get a lunch break, and I'll drive the train. And on days that he's not there, I'll do it a lot. In special events, they'll call me in and run the train for different things. But I get a good bit of throttle time on that locomotive. It's something I really enjoy doing. It's kind of a dream for me. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a steam locomotive engineer, and I was so disappointed when my parents told me at the age of about 4 or 5 or 6 years old. I can still remember this very vividly in my memory. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I remember this event when my parents informed me that they didn't use steam locomotives anymore, and I was heartbroken. I was literally heartbroken because, you know, this was my whole aspiration in life. I wanted to be a locomotive engineer, a steam locomotive engineer, and I didn't want to drive a diesel train. I wanted to drive a steam train. And, you know, now I'm an adult and I get to go play with trains on the weekend. Not model trains, but real trains. So a lot of fun. In fact, now that I got my little GoPro camera, I'm going to try to shoot some video on the locomotive and give y'all a chance to see some things there. So hopefully here in the next, I don't know when it'll be, month or two, hopefully I'll get a chance one Saturday to shoot some video and show you a little bit about driving a steam locomotive, because I think it's cool. I hope you guys will too. One more comment here. This one was from making a square head bolt threading on a metal lathe. This one is from Tall Guy Small Bike. It says, how true will a 4-jaw scroll run with round stock in it? And again, what he's talking about is on the metal lathe out there, I've got a 4-jaw scroll chuck. And this is where all 4 jaws move in like a 3-jaw chuck. It's not like a traditional 4-jaw where the jaws move independently of one another. And I bought this chuck specifically because I was doing a lot of making square head bolts from different size materials. I didn't have a collet chuck on there that I could chuck up square. You can't easily chuck square stock with the 3-jaw chuck. So I actually bought a little small 4-jaw scroll chuck, that I could easily do the different size materials to turn that square stock. And the little chuck works so well that, particularly for smaller stuff, a lot of times I use that 4-jaw chuck instead of the larger 3-jaw chuck that we just did some work on, because it does run pretty true. And to answer your question, how true will it run? I've never actually measured it, but I can tell you just from looking at it that it runs a heck of a lot truer than my 3-jaw chuck used to, and really and truly probably even better than it does now, even after I ground it. Just looking at it with my eye. I'll try the next time I'm out at the museum, chuck up a reamer or something that has a ground surface on it and indicate that in, and just see. But I'm guessing it's going to be around 2, maybe 3 thousandths. But just looking at it, it runs pretty true. I need to get a true smaller 3-jaw chuck for that lathe, or I may even try to find a 6-jaw chuck for that lathe down the road for doing some smaller work. But for now, I've got the 4-jaw scroll chuck, and it works good, and I'm going to keep on using it. So that's pretty much all the comments that I highlighted. I had a lot of other comments from people just saying great job, or didn't really have a question. Keep the comments coming. I really appreciate it, guys. Again, if you got any, ideas, throw them at me. Listen, I don't mind constructive criticism. If you just got nothing bad to say, nothing but something bad to say, keep your thoughts to yourself. My mom always told me, if you can't say something nice, just don't say nothing at all. I've had some pretty rough comments out there. I've actually deleted a few comments because I'm just not going to tolerate, particularly when you start calling me names or start using profanity in your post. Don't expect them to stick around very long. If you have constructive criticism, I'm not going to delete those, because I think that adds to a dialogue, and I'm very open to that. But if you don't like me, if you don't like the way I'm doing this, just go somewhere else. I don't know why there's people like that in this world, but there are. I guess we just have to deal with them. But again, thank you guys for subscribing. I know this video has probably gotten long. If you've hung in here the whole time, thank you. If you gave up on me a long time ago and didn't see this, well, that's fine too. But I had several people tell me they like this, so we may do this type of commenting again from time to time. So that's all for now. We'll try to get some more videos up here in the next week or two.